innovator, technology, and healthcare, Lee is focused on using technology to advance the timing and quality of care delivery. Prior to launching Synzi, Lee was the president of Stratus Video Telehealth and successfully launched several innovative technology solutions into the marketplace. We welcome Lee today.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, we're going to spend a couple minutes talking a little bit about Synzi, and then we're going to really dive right into the product. Ultimately, my goal today is to give you a complete view of our technology and platform and some of the things that we're doing that potentially are interest of you and unique in the marketplace, that hopefully you can understand where we're going in the marketplace with our solutions, and most importantly, areas that may be beneficial for you to look at in order to leverage our technology moving into the future. So today's agenda, we're going to really talk about what makes Synzi different, and then we're going to dive right in the demo. And at the end, if we have a couple minutes, I'd love to take a couple questions and answers as we go. Okay, so a little bit about Synzi first and foremost. We're a company that's based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. So for all of you that aren't in the beautiful climate of Florida right now and are dealing with the winter storms, I apologize. We're fortunate to be down here. I may not say that in a couple months because it's going to be so hot that I may want to be up north. But nonetheless, we're based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. One of the things I think that makes Synzi unique that I always try to emphasize as we talk about our organization and what we do and how we approach the market to deliver solutions and technology is we're really a technology-first company. So our goals and values are really around delivering high-quality technology that is effective and really just works. And ultimately, hopefully, you'll see that today within our solution. And then in addition to that, we're really focused on the post-acute care side. We've obviously done some work in the acute care, but our primary focus and where we spend the bulk of our time is focusing on post-acute. From a company perspective, really quickly, we started as an incubation organization out of Stratus Video, and we built Stratus Video Telehealth Division in really May of 2016. Fortunate with the growth that we've had, we were able to secure additional capital, and in January of 2018, we formed Synzi, and it's been incredible ever since. We obviously, as Anna Maria mentioned, we have released a next-generation platform that came out in 2018. In early 2018, we also released what we call our patient program management, which we'll spend a little bit of time on today as well as we go through the product technology. And then we've won a handful of awards that we're extremely excited about and continue to look to you as potential partners and customers to help us continue to grow our partnership and be recognized as one of the thought leaders within this marketplace. So when we think about Synzi, what I always try to talk about are the things that maybe make us slightly unique in this marketplace. Obviously, there's a lot of organizations that are building technology and actually delivering solutions to the marketplace. And many of them are very unique and different and have components of what we deliver in the marketplace. But what we really focus on, and what I want to emphasize today and spend the bulk of our time as we get into the product, is we're really all about the patient and staff experience. So what do I mean by that? I really mean, we like our patients and staff to be able to say to us, wow, the experience of using that technology was as good, if not better, than being an in-person type of solution. We also like that, when we hear feedback and we really talk with our clients on a daily basis to understand what's working and what's not working within the application to strive to continue to make it better. But ultimately, what we look for is to have people really enjoy being inside the application. And from a visual and a personal experience, it meets their needs. And it's not complicated and it's not complex, but it really is delivering the value that they're looking for in an experience that they're satisfied with. The other piece, as we started to form the organization and really think about what we wanted to do in the marketplace, spending significant time in the EHR world, what I heard from many organizations in that marketplace, especially with clinicians, is, don't make this technology so complex and so difficult that it's harder than we need it to do to be able to perform our daily jobs. So we really took a very simplistic approach to the use of the technology. Now, that being said, the beauty is, on the backside of the technology, from a configuration perspective, it ultimately has the capabilities to really meet almost anyone's needs. We built the technology on what we consider a platform that allows for total configurability. So every organization has a different workflow and strategy that they want to use. But ultimately, what we say is, on the backside, you can configure that. From a staff and patient perspective, we want to keep it simple. And as we go through the product today, hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate that to you. The other piece that we often don't talk as much about, but we really should, is video technology is very challenging to deliver at a high quality. And we've spent a lot of time. There's a lot of organizations, again, that do multiple different things and similar that we do. But one of the areas that we really focused on and have focused on is delivering high video quality connections. And we think about that, again, kind of referring back to a statement I made earlier, and that was, we want the experience for the patient and the staff member to feel like they were in a personal meeting, whether it be in person or visually. We want that experience to really feel exactly the same. So in order to do that, what we really took on and embarked as an organization was building a proprietary WebRTC video platform that allows us to really accommodate what our users and our organizations that leverage our technology need in order to be successful. And then the last piece is what I call the last 5 feet matter. And everyone says, well, what is that? If you're thinking about a football analogy or a sports analogy, there's been a lot of work that's been done and a lot of investments both by technology companies, healthcare companies, and folks like you that have made significant investments around population health, doing stratification of patient population, the understanding really of what matters from a clinical perspective to that patient. Where we really fill the gap and what we focus on is taking all of that hard work that's been done by each of these organizations, and after that stratification from a patient population is complete, really understanding how to engage with those patients. And the only way you truly can do that through a patient engagement application and platform is to make sure that you cover all the modalities. Otherwise, you have sporadic hit or miss understandings of how patients want to be engaged, when they want to be engaged, and under what modality you're using to engage them. So this is an area where we've spent a lot of time, and we work closely with our clients on really understanding, based on demographic and population, how individuals want to engage through an application, and whether that be video or secure messaging, texting, email, or audio. The reality is each of those modalities through different demographics are more effective than others. And at the end of the day, it's all about patient satisfaction and being able to obviously maintain your patient in a high quality of care, and you're delivering the best care possible to them. So from that perspective, we'll move on. So what I'm going to demonstrate today are 3 applications. So the first application that I'm going to walk everyone through is what we call our virtual care application. So let me start by saying we run natively on iOS, Google Play, and on your Windows browsers. Some of the unique differentiators in our technology, as you can see, it's visually appealing. So, one of the things that we really spend a lot of time on is, from a visual perspective, how people are going to be able to leverage the application, and hopefully you'll see that as we dive into the application. We have the ability to enroll and disenroll patients in programs, and I'll spend a little bit more time about the program component as we go. But the idea is, from one screen, a staff member can really access, based on their permissions, really anything they need to, whether it be another staff member or whether it be a patient and or programs that you may have created for specific patients. It allows you to do secure messaging bidirectional. So again, from a staff perspective, you can do bidirectional secure messaging inside the application, which delivers high trust and HIPAA certification. We also send ad hoc email requests, which is a huge opportunity for a lot of our clients. When you're inside the application, to not have to get out of the application and go to your email system to send an email notification to the patient, to be able to do it inside the application removes multiple steps in the processes. And it allows people, again, to kind of sit in one application and deliver what's needed from a communication perspective. You can view staff and patient rosters from the single application as well. You can speak to patients through different care teams, and I'll describe a care team as we continue down, actually diving into the application. And then lastly, but really important, is you can really select a preference that you want to communicate through that patient. And the preference really isn't necessarily designated by you, the individual staff member. It's really an understanding of the data and understanding how those patients want to be communicated through across what channel. So that's our virtual care app, and I'll dig into this a little bit more as we go. The second application I will show is what we call our Care Connect application. And as you can see, this is a very visually intuitive type of application. It's not overly complicated, and it was intentionally built this way so that from a patient perspective, both from an adoption and a continued use and engagement model, we've really simplified the workflows on how a patient can access care. As I dive into this application, what you will see is we have something called care teams. And care teams can be set up. It's solely based on the permissions and the rights that you want to grant each patient. So in this model, you can see that we have multiple care team members that are associated to a specific patient. If you didn't want to grant them access to specific people, we have below it what we call our first available staff. And this is what we call our progression-based routing, which allows you to, instead of designating specific people that are associated to the patient, you can actually have a group of individuals either designated by location or maybe by title and role, so that you can actually have a patient, instead of having to click on and find an individual, which you could do out of the care team piece, you could simply click the green box, and if there was someone available, it would route a video call until someone picked up. Our goal ultimately, and what we're striving for, is no patient should go unresponsive. So our goal on how we configure systems and set up systems with our partnership and our clients is really about having access to care. So from a patient perspective, whether you wanted to set up care teams, which we had in the top here, where you could actually designate specific individuals to them, or if you wanted to have that progression-based routing where there was someone first available. At all times, our recommendation is to have a workflow and a process that allows you to access care so that the patient's needs are met. From an availability perspective, you can see if, again, from a very intuitive, easy understanding, if there's a staff member that's available, they'll be in green on a call perspective. As you can see on the right-hand side, we have also internal secure messaging inside the application. So if that individual, for example, Jennifer Smith, wasn't available and she's grayed out, which means she's offline, you could still send her a secure message, and it would send a notification to her when she got back on the application that she had a secure message waiting for her. For someone like myself who is online, or Mike Zock who is online, you could either do a video call or you could simply send a secure message. And if we weren't in a smartphone device, or if we were on a web browser, it would simply notify you through a banter. If you were outside of your smartphone, it would banter as if you were getting a call. You could simply click on that banner, and it will route you into the application and direct you to the specific notification that's in the application. So very simple, very easy to use, and I'll dig into this a little bit more as we go. The last application is what we call our enterprise administration application. So this is where all of the configuration and setup is done in the back end. We obviously can take nightly feeds and data feeds from different systems that you may have in order to pre-populate patient or staff requirements. But most importantly, what we're showing here is just one simple slide around the permissions component. So we have this incredible flexibility inside the application on our enterprise admin piece that really allows you to assign roles and access based on permissions of the individual that you want to set up. So in this case, you can see that there's about 8 different permissions rights. So for example, if you wanted to just set someone up that has solely access to all of our enterprise reporting, you could do so. If you wanted to give someone access to publishing program content, you could do that as well. So ultimately, it has this incredible flexibility that allows you to really set the configuration from a permissions perspective across the entire application, and it allows different users within that administrative role to be able to access the pertinent information that they're responsible for. In addition to that, this is where all of our what we call templates and programs are built. So as we dive into this a little bit more, I'll walk you through the template and program component, but think about those as opportunities to automate, so go from a reactive model to a proactive model of being able to do outreaches to your patient population across different comorbidities and different programs that you have set up inside of the application. It's incredibly intuitive, it's simple to use, and it allows you really, instead of having to think about either making calls or sending emails or sending text to patients, it automates that entire workflow. You can basically set it up, enroll in a patient in it, and it basically does all the work for you. We also have a dashboard reporting piece, which I'll spend a couple minutes going through as we get into the application. But ultimately, this is where you can configure all of your roles, your teams, and your patients' configuration. There are other ways that you can add additional patients into the application, which I will show you. But think of this, if those of you that are using Salesforce.com, this is where the administrative admin component of that would reside. Okay, so I will take a second here, and I'm going to move into the product itself. So let me just change the application sharing, and hopefully you can see my web browser here with our virtual care application set up. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to walk you through the product as it sits, and then I've also asked one of my associates, Tom Albano, which you see in some of my favorites, who is highlighted in green, to do a couple calls with me as we go through this demonstration. I will also say that with WebEx, WebEx has a significant delay in regards to its video quality in comparison to our technology. So I always lay that caveat because the experience that Tom and I will have directly connected through our video platform will be far superior to what you'll see out of WebEx, because WebEx doesn't have the frames per second, nor do they have the capability to keep up with our video speed. So laying that out, I'll get right into the product. So as you can see at the top, there's really 3 components of the virtual care application. First is staff members. So you're looking at the staff member group here. As you can see, all of this is obviously branded in your brand. I happen to have the Synzi brand here, but all of this could be branded under your personal brand. On the left-hand side here, I'll start here. This is where, if in the event you wanted to search through a roster of patients where maybe you have 30 or 40 different people that you're associated with and that you have the ability to access through the application, you could simply type in their name and it would bubble them to the top, and you could simply look to see whether they're online or offline or on another call. So we have 3 colors that are associated with the call button. You can see the green call button. You can also see the gray call button. So the green is the individual is available and they're online. The gray call button is they're not available and they're not online. We also have a red call button, which means they're available, but they're actually in a video call at that point in time. To the right of the call button is our secure messaging. This, again, is inside of our application, so it removes any of your security or compliance issues because we're in a HIPAA HITRUST certified platform. But ultimately, you can see through this search criteria that you could find anyone that you really wanted to access that you had permissions to access through the search category. Along the left-hand side, you can see visually that, we believe in picture. So, whether it be patient or staff members, the ability to be able to visualize an individual is very important to us. So we give you the capability to add a small snapshot of the picture of the patient or the staff member. We also have these stars, and the stars are really driven for the ability to have and save your favorites. So you can see I have all of these checked, but I could take a couple off, and as I go back out, here are my favorites. So if you have a group of favorites that you constantly want to communicate with, you could simply star them, and they will bubble up across the top of the application in the favorite section. I've got a group of them here. As you can see, as you look at each of these individuals, again, without having to do any search, you can actually just put your cursor right on top of the individual, and it will tell you whether they're online, even though there's a green, a gray, and a red button switch associated to it. It will also notify you whether you can communicate with them at all or not. So, for example, Tom Albano, you can see I could call him or message him. The other parties that are grayed out, I can still message, but I can't access them through a video call. So that's kind of the favorites piece, and I'll do a call here in just a second. But secondarily, we've built this technology which we call progressive-based routing. And progressive-based routing, again, like I talked a little bit about on the patient side, is the ability where if you want to access an individual that's either part of a team or at a location, you can configure all of these with simple button clicks. So if I go into, for example, my Care Team East, you can see the roster of individuals that are associated with that. If you didn't really care which one you wanted to speak to, you could simply click this Call First Available, and it would actually go through a progression and call everyone that was associated with that care team one by one. So it would go through a progression-based routing, and you can set the timing in regards to how long you want it to ring with each individual before it progresses to the next. Or if you wanted to just go into the care team and look who was available to you, you can simply do that as well as you're seeing in this demonstration. So very simple, very easy to access. The configuration and the setup of these are very intuitive, and again, they bring a lot of value if you're looking to gain access quickly without having to put a lot of complexity around the technology. As you look at the top, I'll move to the patient side. So if you have permissions and rights to the patient, a patient profile looks like this, so I'll spend a couple minutes on this. From a patient perspective, first and foremost, again, we're visually in tune with wanting to make sure that from a visual perspective, we're delivering the best experience. You have an identifier at the top with that patient. That's a unique identifier that traditionally comes out of your EHR, your care management system. On the top right-hand side, we have three buttons. We have this email-looking button, which I'll spend a minute on in just a second. We have a phone, which obviously is the ability to do a video call, and then secure messaging. As we scroll down the application, you can see that there is a handful of demographic information that we associate to each patient. One of the unique things that we do within our application is, we don't work off of technology like patient portals where you have to have username and password for patients to be able to access the system. We actually leverage within our platform a unique token that's sent to them either via email or text. And that's first line of security compliance, so that's basically one. And then the second is we ask them to enter their date of birth. So we capture date of birth within the application, and we identify that to the token that we send the patient. So when a patient goes to log into the application, They simply click on the link, and whether they're on a smartphone or a web browser, it will prompt them through the download of the app if they're on a smartphone. If they're on a web browser, it will take them to a secure URL link, and they simply type in their date of birth, and it automatically presents them with the application and the access to care that you've designated for them to have access to. As we go down, you can see, again, the demographic piece that we capture. The next piece is what we call our care teams, which I showed a little bit in that PowerPoint. This is, again, the idea of you can either set up limited access from a patient perspective or full access, depending on how you want to configure the application. Ultimately, we have certain organizations that want to have very specific people, staff members associated to specific patients, so you could set that up in a care team. Or we also have other organizations we don't want our patients to have direct access to specific people, so we want to put them into basically a progression-based solution, or maybe not even give them access to call into a progression base and only have it one directional where the staff can contact the patient, but the patient can't contact the staff. So it's fully configurable on how you feel most appropriate to use technology. In the middle here, we have what we call our programs, and I'll just show a quick example of, we've got a medication adherence program. This is a 10-day program. I know within my enterprise admin, this is a 3-touch program. There's a day 1, a day 5, and a day 10. I also know that it comes in multiple languages, so when we get in the enterprise admin piece, I'll show you the representation of this program. But if I wanted to add a patient on the fly, so let's say I have a nurse who's out at a patient's house, and they originally, from an intake perspective, were diagnosed with, I'll just use renal failure. And all of a sudden, the RN is at the patient's house, or the nurse is at the patient's house, and they recognize that they also have diabetes, and they weren't, through the intake form, recognized of that. You could simply come into a program, and if you've built something for diabetes, you could simply click on this enrollment, and based on the programs that you've built, they would align themselves down the right-hand side here, and you could simply click on any one of those and assign that patient to that new program, and it would automatically launch whatever the touch points are that are responsible for that program. So again, a very easy, user-friendly type of experience for both the staff member along with patient being able to get access. On the right-hand side, just to finish out this tab is, again, kind of that message content and channels that we're talking about. So inside the app, we obviously have secure messaging. We have video technology. Outside the application, though, we also can do text messaging and emailing. So this is where we would capture that information from an email perspective or a phone. And then lastly, languages. This is very important. 23% of the United States population are limited English proficiency population. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the ability not just to incorporate video interpretation and that integration real time into a video call with a staff and a patient member, but the ability for us to do real translation of content. And I will demonstrate that when we get in the enterprise admin. But we capture that patient's information on this screen from a demographic. So in the event, for example, if they were a Spanish-speaking patient and it said Spanish here, any content that you would enroll them into from a program perspective that was that we had translated for you under the Spanish language, that whole program would be launched in their native language. So if you think about kind of closing the gap in how you communicate with your patient population, if you've got 23% of that across the United States that, do not speak English or do not speak English fluidly, the idea of being able to speak in their native language from the very onset, the ability to be able to send a welcome home email in their native language is very powerful. And then to be able to really complete that life cycle and have the opportunity to bring in a video interpreter to now not just do the content piece of it in their native language, but also to do the interpretation piece is very valuable for a lot of our clients. And then the last piece is just secure messaging. And I say just secure messaging because, you know, everyone thinks they do it, and the reality is very few do it effectively. And more importantly, what I would tell you is very few do it inside of one application with 3 or 4 other modalities. So this is ultimately, you know, one of the things that we've added to the technology in the last, I guess, 4 months now, and we believe it was a huge need for our clients to be able to reduce the number of applications that they're trying to use to manage their communication with their patients. So as you can see here, the roster on the left-hand side, there's a search bar as well where if you are looking to go find a secure message that you had a conversation maybe with a patient a year ago, you can simply go in and do a search and it will bubble that individual to the top. But along the left-hand side, you can look at any communication you had, whether it was with another staff member or with a patient, and you can simply come into the form text here and type out information in order to contact that patient, and vice versa. So on the patient side, which I'll show in a minute, they have the same capability to their care team members if they have assigned care team members. Okay? All right, so if I go back to staff, why don't we just real quickly here walk through just a very simple use case. So if I'm a nurse that's at a patient's home, and again, I maybe want to bring one of my wound care specialists or an individual into a call, medical director, to talk a little bit about what's going on with the patient, I'm just going to show you how simple and easy the technology is. So from a staff-to-staff perspective, I'm the staff member at the home with the patient. I'm looking to speak to Tom Albano. I'm going to mute our line on the video piece of Synzi only because I want to make sure that we don't have feedback through the audio channel. But I'm going to call Tom. And there's Tom. So you can see that, you know, pretty simply, I brought Tom into the call. You know, again, it's very intuitive, very user-friendly. You know, if there's anything, that's weird, they don't see it. Hold on just a second, let me see if I can move this over. Maybe that will do it. Okay, I had to swap screens. So from a perspective of being able to add Tom to a call, it's very easy to do. You can see along the bottom here, I have the ability to, if I'm in a conversation with a patient and I want to basically block Tom, I can mute him so that he can't see us. He can mute me if he's having a conversation with someone else, both from a video and audio perspective, which he just demonstrated there. At the top here, you can see I have the ability to add a plus button. So in the event that I wanted to bring someone else into this call, I could simply look through the roster of individuals from a staff perspective that I was looking for in order to connect. And if they were available, I could simply click on the button and call, for example, like Steve Emery. I won't do that at this time because he's not on, I know he's not on this call. But anyways, so a very simple, intuitive way to be able to access the video piece of the technology. So I'm going to slide this back over. Just see here. Now it's, of course, not coming. Oh, what have we got there? What do you see? Sorry. Okay. All right. So from an application perspective, let me just move this over as well. Okay. From an application perspective, you should be able to see now my Care Connect application. So from a Care Connect perspective, this is the patient's view. As I described to you a little bit earlier, you know, this is an opportunity for you to really kind of have that bi-directional communication with the patient. And as you can see within the application here, it's very intuitive, very easy to use. You can set up what we call care teams, which are specific individuals, as I described, or you can do first available. Or, again, you could basically set up to where if you didn't want your patients to have access to being able to do video calls at all and you just wanted the ability to call the patient themselves, you could do that as well. So from an application perspective, you can see that here is all of your video and secure messaging. If I wanted to do a secure message, I could simply come in, type in the secure message and say, "Hi, Ali," and this message would be sent. It then would follow up into the application that it's Jenny, who's in the application as a staff member, and that message would automatically be transferred to her. So from, an access perspective, you can see on the top right here, we really have a handful of different categories. You have your care team, you have your secure messages, which is the group of people that you've communicated with in the past in secure messaging. And then you have different settings, and you have the ability to sign in and out of the application. I'll go back to the main screen around care teams. And again, I think from a simplicity perspective, because I'm on a dual screen, I'll go ahead and, again, basically show you the experience from a patient perspective, how simple and easy it is. If I send Tom a quick note here, I'm going to move him back to this screen, and he's in my call. So I simply and effectively, just from a patient perspective, reached out to Tom, asked him if he could connect, and he did. I want to just quickly show the bi-directional piece of that. So if Tom was the staff member looking for me as the patient, I'm going to ask him just to give me a quick call. And here comes Tom. You can see on the inbound, it basically has a picture of Tom and who's calling me. I'm going to hit accept, and I'm going to hit allow, and there's Tom in my video call. So when you talk about simple, easy-to-use technology, hopefully you're starting to get a good experience of how easy our product really is as it relates to being able to do quick access to care. Obviously, the patient can't add other parties, but while I'm on this topic, if Tom was to add another party, and for whatever reason Tom decided that he had met the requirement of the call, he could simply hang up the video call, and after he hung up, our call would still stay connected. So this is a very important piece of our technology that makes us uniquely different in the marketplace, where you can have multiple parties connect to a call, and even though the first connection may have been made between two parties, if one of those two parties hang up, the other parties will still stay in the video call. So thank you, Tom, for joining us. Appreciate it. Okay, and I'm going to move this back over here, and let's see. Okay, so I went through the Care Connect piece. I've gone through the virtual care piece. There is one other piece on virtual care that I wanted to show from a patient perspective that really, again, is kind of a great feature for most of our clients, and that is we had the video and we did the secure messaging. The last piece is this little email box here. So this is what we call our on-demand request. So if you think about the ability to either form text a notification to a patient while you're inside the application, you want to send it to them via email and text, you can simply do that. Or you can build what we call templates, which we build out of our enterprise admin piece, which I'll show in a minute. But if you have built templates, which I built a handful of here, and maybe I want to send a quick notification to Amy about appointment reminder tomorrow, I could simply have that template built, and again, for simplicity, you can say, you can edit this at any point, so maybe you want to have it at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock. You can simply come in, instead of having to free-form text all of that into the box, you can build these templates that are available to you, and you can simply edit whatever you need to edit, and once you've edited it, you can simply hit send, and it will send this notification to the patient. So I'll be getting that email and text here in a minute on my devices, but it's again, very user-friendly, very easy to access. It really consolidates everything from a staff member perspective into one application. If I go back to this for 1 second, and let's say I want to pick another follow-up, and maybe this is a medication reminder, and let's say the patient doesn't speak English and they speak Russian, and I've had that translated, I could simply click the language of Russian, and it would send this notification in their native language. So again, very intuitive, very easy to use, and from a setup and configuration, once you set these up, they're really on demand. They're accessible to you at any point in time as a staff member. Okay. All right, so if we go into Enterprise Admin, you can see I've started, this is my enterprise here. I actually am in the dashboard piece, so I want to spend a couple minutes on this. We can report on any level of connectivity inside of our application. So what I mean by that is, even if you're trying to do calls to patients or patients to staff members or staff members to staff members, we can account for every single either connection or misconnection or non-answered connection. And we do that simply and effectively real-time through the application. This happens to be a quick snapshot of one dashboard that we have that really talks about how many meetings were done in a monthly basis on the left-hand side. It also shows how many were staff versus patient. You can put your cursor over and it will toggle to the numbers themselves for each month. So you can go back and look for the last 4 months as to what's going on within the application and the usage of it. This is the message side. So if you think about, again, building messages and programs around outreach to patients, what do they look like? How many emails, how many SMS messages were sent to patients? And again, you have the same capability. If I wanted to simply export any of this data, I can go in and I can do a date range to start and end with, and I also have the ability to have true reporting components, detailed reporting that are available to me with a simple click of a button that are real-time. And you can see on the top right here, we can download these into CSV. So if you have a visualization product that you're currently using, we can export them into a visualization product for you. If you don't, we can export them into Excel, and you can do any type of edit or modification you want to them. But these reports are really useful and beneficial. They'll show you at the very top what the report summary is, but then as you go down, it will actually show you your calls, who was connected, how long the call lasted, how many parties were in the call, what the date of the call was, and a specific unique ID that's associated with that call itself. So again, it gives you the capability and flexibility to really look at all of your call logs to determine the usage of it. In addition to that, we have the ability to start looking at staff usability and availability. So we have here what patients are online, what staff members are online. You can dig in and look at how long they've been online. You can also look at, for example, whether or not they've accepted X amount of calls on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. So you have full control to do the parameters that you want to be able to look at utilization of your staff as well, and real-time reporting as to who's online and who's not online. The next piece we have is a current patient roster. So in the patient roster piece, it will tell you the patient's information. It will tell you a handful of things about them, and then it will also tell you the status and what programs they're associated with. So for example, Amy Slack here, we joined her into the program on March 12th, and I know she's involved in 3 programs, a medication adherence, a discharge program, and an at-home follow-up. So you can, with a simple overview, look at these or export them to, again, a visualization product, but you have the ability to look at them real time. And then lastly, program reports. So this is kind of some of the crown jewels that we were talking about in regards to how do you start to understand what patient is taking action across what modality. So you can dig into these and determine what patient accessed via email, what patient accessed via text, what your secure messaging components look like. You can really look at the entire program that's associated with the patient and identify whether or not they took action based on the request that you had made to them. As you go down the left-hand side here, you can see this is where all the setup is of your different users. So if you think about us, we really have staff users and then we have patient users. I talked a little bit about building groups. So again, groups are the ability to set up either by location or by role. The idea of building out a set of individuals that with that call routing and progression you have direct access to through a simple button that will click and allow you to either connect to a specific individual or a group of individuals through the application. The next piece is patient. And again, from a patient perspective, it's very easy to add a patient at this level. You also can add a patient at the virtual care level. I may take you back and show you that just for simplicity. But the idea of being able to add patient rosters, we can take them basically as a bulk feed, or you can enter them individually depending on how you best see fit within your organization. Below the patient piece is the care team. We talked a little bit about this, of building care teams and having patients have access to specific care team members. This is where that configuration would be set up. And then in the last component of this, before I get to the communication piece, this is where, in the administrator piece, where you would set up really your users, and whether those users have access to the full enterprise or they have access to the reporting piece only, you can configure each of those users to provide access to whatever you deem appropriate. Okay, so from a patient communication perspective, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes here, and I know we're running up on the 1 o'clock hour, so I want to be careful. But when I talk about that communication piece and the ability to go from a reactive to a proactive model, this is really where that magic happens. So if you think about when you're building out any level of engagement with a patient, it starts with a set of different templates, as we would call them. So a template to us is a message. So if I go in and I look at a template, you can build multiple templates. So here are 3 templates: a reminder day 1, a reminder day 5, and a reminder day 10 around medication adherence. The way these work is you simply come in and you basically identify the language. Everything defaults with English. So as you're thinking about building templates on how you're going to communicate and engage with your patients, everything starts with the English language first. You build in your subject email, what the notification is about, and then you can basically build the content or enter the content that you deem appropriate that you want either the patient to take action on. So we can do multiple things here. We can either be informative, we can push them to maybe a URL that has a secure link that maybe has a video piece that you've pushed to them, or the ability to push them into our application for a video call or a secure message. So you have multiple ways that you can communicate with the patient. But you can see we have an email component and then a text message component, an SMS. The reason why these are different is obviously the characters on on text messaging have to be of certain length, and they can't exceed certain length, otherwise it won't truncate properly. So we actually could give you both accesses. If you wanted to send a larger email along with a shorter text message, you could do that simply within the application. You can also see down at the bottom, we have different rights. So we have organizations who have people who build content and save the content, but you may also have a compliance group that is the only group that can publish the content. So within the application, based on your roles and permissions, we have the ability to put those into different controls across the application. Once you've completed it in English, you then we provide a service that allows you to send us those messages, those templates in English, and we will do human translation for you. So when we think about translation, we don't use Google Translator because the dialect doesn't work properly. So we use human translation. But if you give us a set of templates, 1, 100, 3,000, whatever it is, and you tell us we want them translated in Russian and Spanish and Burmese, we will actually translate all of those and populate them back into the application under a save method, and then you can publish them. But you can see in that first day, here's a Russian-based translated document that would go out to someone who spoke natively Russian. And you can do that across many different languages. If I was to go in, I can show you that in this group we've got, I guess, about 30 different languages that you could assign to the patient from a translation perspective. In addition to that, you see these little asterisks next to a couple of these. So these are where I went and maybe, again, formed some content and saved it, but that asterisk says that I haven't published it. So if I come in and I do publish translation, it will tell me I've published it, and now that asterisk is now off of that notification, and you can again do that via multiple different language bases. The last piece here is we have the ability, as you're building out these templates, to be able to use them in a program fashion or on that on-demand. That on-demand is where I showed you in the virtual care piece, where you could actually go in and go into a template and it would auto-pull any of the templates that we have. This is where that appointment reminder resided. So as you could see when we were in virtual care, when I went into the application and hit the appointment reminder, it auto-populated the message that I had built there. But in addition to that, we have what we call programs. And I'm going to just quickly walk through the medication adherence program. So this is the 10-day program. And if I go into it, you can set these up extremely easy. They literally take a couple minutes to set up once you've built the templates. But here's an example of a 3-touch program. So you can see as you look down, the program starts upon the patient being enrolled in the application. The first reminder basically starts 1 hour after enrollment. So this is the first day reminder. And this comes, again, from the content that we built in the templates. We just now are assigning them to a program. So you can build as many templates as you want and as many programs as you want, but you would take your templates and assign them to a program. And in this case, I have a 1-day, a 5-day, and a 10-day, and you can see the schedule association with them are all in line with the time frames that are appropriate to the dates that they're being sent. Now, in addition to that, you have cutoff times. So let's say that you want to send notifications to a patient and you only want it to be available to that patient for 1 day. You could simply come in and change it to 1 day or 1 hour, whatever you deem appropriate. So you have full control. The other piece is this goes back to the informational or accessing them to take action. So informational means we're going to send this information, and it's strictly informational. If I was to change this to care team, it would have a link that would actually drive them right into the application, and then they would have access either via secure message or video to access the care that they need. So again, very intuitive, very user-friendly, very easy to access. The only other piece that I just want to quickly show you that I didn't talk about was the ability for a staff member, if in the event they wanted to add a new patient to their roster, they could simply come into the virtual care app and fill out the patient pertinent information and hit save, and that would add the patient to the patient roster. So again, multiple ways to add patients into the application. It's very seamless and easy to do. You could do it on the administrative side, or you can do it as a staff member through virtual care, depending on what your roles are and rights. All right, so about 5 minutes left. Wanted to open it up for QA. Okay, so I have a question around clinical documentation in the system. So we intentionally, coming from the EHR world, we intentionally did not build any type of transitional EHR or any clinical documentation here. And the reason for that is simply our belief is think of us as a communication platform and a visual component of that platform. The documentation, whether it be the encounter or the note to that patient, would still be recognized in the system of record choice. So our belief in and how all of our clients use the technology today. They use us as the vehicle for the communication piece and the visual component, and then they actually document the encounter in the record of choice. And we found that to be very powerful and intentionally on why we did, because we've heard, if we've heard it once, we've heard it 1,000 times, that we don't want to have to document in two totally separate different systems. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we're allowing people to do all the work that they can inside of our application while continuing to document inside the application that they're most comfortable and familiar with. Any other questions, Anna Maria?
If there are any other questions, feel free to type them in the chat window. Lee is happy to address them now or even follow up with you individually after today's webinar presentation.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for joining today and look forward to sharing more information as we continue to release new feature sets within the product. Thank you all very much and have a great day.